Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive deep into something super relevant today?
Always.
Awesome. Buckle up, because today we're tackling cooperative societies in India.
Oh, yeah. A topic near and dear to my heart.
I know, right? Not just crucial for those UPSC exams, but for anyone who wants to understand India better. Its economy, how
Hmm.
society functions.
It's the fabric of India in a way.
Exactly. It's groups of people joining forces to achieve something together. Yeah. Farmers' cooperatives, credit societies, even consumer co-ops.
Right. Working together for the common good.
And these co-ops got a big boost back in 2011
Oh, yeah, big time.
with the 97th Amendment to the Indian Constitution.
Game changer.
Seriously, it was like India saying, hey, cooperatives, you matter.
Took them long enough, though.
Right. But better late than never, I
Yes,
guess.
for sure, for sure. They were kind of in this legal gray area before.
Yeah, so this amendment gave them constitutional status protection.
Big deal. Made them legit.
Huge. So
Yeah.
break it down for me. What exactly did this amendment change?
Okay, so a few big things. First off, it made the right to form cooperative societies a fundamental right. Article 19(1) of the Constitution.
Well, hold on. Fundamental right,
Yeah.
like freedom of speech, religion.
Yep, right up there.
That's massive.
Yeah.
Not just allowing them, but saying it's a fundamental right.
Exactly. Shows how important they are.
I'm getting chills.
And there's more. It also introduced a new directive principle of state policy.
Okay, back up a sec. What's a directive principle?
Think of them like guidelines for the government, like goals they should aim for when making policies.
Gotcha. So this one was about promoting cooperative society.
Bingo. So now the government has to protect the right to form them.
Sure.
A&D actively help them grow.
Double whammy.
It's a powerful statement.
Totally. So I've got fundamental rights in these guidelines. What else?
The biggest change. They added Part 9XB to the Constitution.
A whole new part dedicated just to cooperatives.
A whole section. It lays out all the rules, how they should operate, formation regulations, even closing down if needed.
Like their own little rule book within the Constitution.
Exactly. No more gray areas.
So organized. I love it.
Right.
But Part 9XB, that's a lot to unpack.
Oh, yeah, it's dense.
Hit me with some of the key points, though. The stuff that really stands out.
Okay, so one of the core principles is democratic member control. Cooperatives should be run by their members for their members.
So everyone has a say.
Exactly. Each member gets an equal vote. Doesn't matter how much money they put in.
Power to the people. Prevents a few wealthy members from calling all the shots.
Right on. And another key thing is member economic participation.
Meaning?
Members don't just benefit, they contribute to the co-op's capital share and its profits.
Shared responsibility all around.
Yep. And this ties into another crucial point, autonomous functioning.
Like they get to run their own show.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The amendment protects them from outside interference, especially from the government.
So they're not puppets of some external force. They make their own decisions.
Exactly. Free to chart their own course.
I love it. So independent. But the amendment also talks about the nitty-gritty, right?
Of course, the structure governance, how
Uh-huh.
things actually work.
Boards, term limits, elections, all that jazz.
It's all in there.
Okay, so let's zoom in on that board composition. How does that work?
So a co-op's board can have up to 21 directors. But there are reserved seats for scheduled castes and tribes and for women.
So it's not just about democracy within the co-op, but also representation at the leadership level.
Exactly. Making sure diverse voices are heard.
Smart. And what about those board members? How long do they get to be in charge?
They have a fixed term, 5 years. And here's something interesting. They can co-opt experts onto the board.
Co-op, like bring in outside help.
Yeah, people with specialized knowledge in banking management, stuff like that. They don't get to vote or become leaders, but their advice is valuable.
Like having specialist advisors to help the cooperative thrive.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
So smart. And speaking of leadership, what about those elections?
Oh, yeah. Part 1XB is very specific about that. They have to happen on time.
No delays, no funny business.
Exactly. Timely and fair elections are the foundation of any democracy.
Makes sense. Yeah. If they keep getting postponed, people lose faith. Things get messy.
For sure. It breeds complacency, lack of accountability, even corruption.
It's like that saying, power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So the amendment was all about keeping those in charge on their toes.
Exactly. Making them answerable to the members.
Regular checkups for the cooperative democracy.
You got it. Keeping things healthy and transparent.
Okay, so elections are vital, but are there ever times when a board can be, like, superseded or suspended?
There are, but Part IXB has safeguards to prevent abuse.
Like what?
Well, it outlines specific circumstances, like financial mismanagement, failure to hold elections.
Obvious stuff.
Yeah, and if a board is superseded, an administrator steps in, calls for new elections within 6 months.
Ah, so it's not a permanent takeover. It's more like hitting the reset button.
Exactly. Power goes right back to the members.
Love that. And I imagine transparency is a big deal in all of this.
Oh, absolutely. Part IXB mandates annual audits, specifies who can be an auditor, and requires the top-level co-ops to present their reports to the state legislature.
No hiding anything.
Nope. Got to be accountable to the public.
And what about the members themselves? Do they have specific rights under Part IXB?
You bet they do. They have the right to access information, participate in management decisions, and receive cooperative education and training.
So it's about empowering them, giving them the tools to be active participants.
Exactly. Informed and engaged.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Not just protecting their right to form co-ops, but helping them thrive within them.
Precisely. It's a holistic approach.
Okay, so to add another layer of accountability, each co-op has to file detailed annual returns, right?
That's right. They have to report on their activities, share their audited accounts, and outline how they plan to use any surplus funds.
Got to keep track of where the money's going.
Transparency is key.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here. But before we move on, I just want to be sure that this Part IXB, it applies to all states, right? Even the union territories.
It does apply to union territories, but there's a bit of flexibility. The president can exempt a specific territory or part of it if needed.
Ah, so there's some room for tailoring based on local circumstances.
Exactly. One size doesn't always fit all.
And what about those existing state laws about cooperative societies? Did this amendment just wipe them out?
Not right away. They had a one-year grace period to either amend them, repeal them, or let them expire naturally.
So a smooth transition.
Exactly. Integration, not just eradication.
I like that thoughtful approach. And this also applies to those multi-state cooperative societies, right?
It does. It's basically the same idea, but scaled up.
So state legislature becomes parliament, state act becomes central act, and state government becomes central government.
You got it. The amendment recognizes that co-ops don't always stick to state boundaries.
Smart thinking. Okay, so bottom line, this 97th Amendment was a major move to strengthen cooperatives all across India.
Absolutely. A comprehensive effort to empower and support them.
But why? Why go through all this trouble to solidify their legal standing?
That's the question that takes us to the heart of why this amendment is so significant.
The heart of the matter, lay it on me.
Well, before the 97th Amendment, the cooperative sector had some serious issues. A lot of it boiled down to a lack of transparency and accountability.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Imagine a situation where elections within cooperatives were postponed indefinitely.
Wait, really? No regular elections. That sounds like a recipe for trouble.
It was. Without the pressure of facing voters, those in charge could get complacent, unresponsive to the needs of their members.
And probably tempted to do some shady stuff, too.
You said a corruption could easily creep in.
Makes sense. If you know you're going to stay in power no matter what, why bother being accountable to anyone?
Exactly. It created a breeding ground for all sorts of problems. It wasn't just about elections either. There were cases where people got into leadership positions not through a fair process, but through nominations.
It was more about who you knew, not what you could actually contribute.
Exactly. And that kind of favoritism, well, it just doesn't work. It leads to inefficiency, stifles innovation.
Makes sense. So this 97th Amendment, it was really about cleaning up the system, making it more democratic accountable.
Precisely. Giving power back to the members, providing the tools to hold their leaders accountable.
Okay, so the intentions were good, but did it actually work? Has this amendment made a real difference?
That is the big question. And to be honest, the answer isn't so simple.
I figured as much.
The impact of the amendment, it really varies from state to state.
Ah, yes. Classic Indian federalism. So many different approaches, different outcomes.
Exactly. We're not looking at a single picture, but a patchwork of different scenarios.
So many moving parts.
And remember, cooperative societies, that's a subject under the state governments.
Right. So the 97th Amendment provides the overall framework, but each state gets to implement it in their own way.
Exactly. They adapt it to their own specific context.
Which means some states might be more enthusiastic about these changes than others.
For sure. And there are a lot of factors at play here. Political will, administrative capacity, even the level of awareness within the cooperative sector itself.
So even with good laws on paper, you need the right environment for them to actually work.
And that's where the cooperatives themselves come in. They need to be ready to embrace these changes, commit to transparency and accountability.
It's a two-way street then.
Absolutely. A shared responsibility. Both the state and the cooperatives have to work together.
Okay, so let's say we want to assess the impact of this amendment. Where should we look? What are some key areas where we might see changes happening?
Well, electoral reforms are a good place to start. Remember, the whole point was to ensure timely and fair elections.
So we'd want to see those elections happening regularly with safeguards in place to prevent any manipulation.
Exactly. If elections are functioning properly, it means the cooperatives are becoming more democratic. Members have a real voice.
And it also keeps those in charge on their toes.
For sure. It creates a more competitive environment, encourages leaders to be responsive to the needs of their members.
What about the makeup of the boards themselves? Has the amendment led to more diverse representation?
Another important area to look at, those reserved seats for scheduled castes and tribes, and for women, they were designed to bring more voices to the table.
So we'd want data on how many women and members from SCST communities are actually serving on these boards.
Exactly. But it's not just about numbers, though.
Right. It's about whether these individuals actually have the power to influence decisions.
Absolutely. We need to see genuine inclusion and participation, not just token representation.
What about the financial side of things? Has the amendment made a difference in how cooperatives manage their money and report their activities?
That's a key area where we'd expect to see improvements. Those provisions for regular audits, access to information, and mandatory filing of returns, they were all about promoting transparency and accountability.
So it's about building trust both within the cooperative and with the public.
Exactly. When people trust that a cooperative is being run honestly and efficiently, they're more likely to support it.
Makes sense. And one more thing that comes to mind, professionalization of management. I mean, running a cooperative, effectively, that requires specific skills and expertise.
Absolutely. Now, the amendment doesn't explicitly mandate qualifications for managers, but it does encourage states to invest in training and capacity building.
So it's more about creating a supportive environment where those skills can be developed.
Precisely. And that takes time and resources. It's a gradual process.
Okay, so we've identified some areas where the amendment might be making a difference. But how do we actually measure this impact? It's not always easy to isolate the effects of a single legal change.
You're absolutely right. It's a complex ecosystem. We can't just point to one thing and say, aha, this is because of the amendment.
So we need a more nuanced approach.
Exactly. We have to ask specific questions. Has the number of cooperatives increased since the amendment? What about their financial performance? Has their membership grown?
And we'd also want to look at things like instances of corruption or mismanagement.
Right. And also get feedback from the members themselves. Are they more satisfied with how their cooperatives are functioning?
So it's about gathering evidence from different sources, both quantitative and qualitative.
Exactly. We need the numbers, but we also need the stories, the experiences of the people involved.
And we have to remember that the cooperative sector is incredibly diverse. A farmer's cooperative faces different challenges than, say, a credit society.
Absolutely. We can't just use a one-size-fits-all approach. We need to tailor our analysis to each specific context.
And this analysis, it needs to be long-term as well. I mean, the 97th Amendment is a long-term project. Its full impact might not be visible for years.
Exactly. It's an ongoing process of change and adaptation, and it's important to be realistic. We can't expect a single amendment to solve all the problems that have existed for decades.
So it's about acknowledging the progress that's been made, but also recognizing the challenges that remain.
Precisely. And speaking of challenges, there have been some bumps along the road in implementing this amendment. One of the biggest hurdles has been pushback from folks who actually liked the old ways.
Ones who benefited from the lack of transparency, all that?
Exactly. They were comfortable with the status quo. Why rock the boat, right?
Even if the boat was sinking.
Sometimes people fear change, especially when it threatens their power.
Makes sense. And you also mentioned capacity building earlier.
Right. A lot of cooperatives just don't have the resources or the know-how to actually implement all these changes.
So it's not enough to just hand them a new rule book. They need support training.
Absolutely. They need guidance to navigate this new landscape.
And that's where the state governments come in.
Exactly. They need to step up. Invest in the cooperative sector, provide the necessary training and resources.
And don't forget about raising awareness among the members themselves.
Oh, that's crucial. A lot of people might not even know about their rights under this new framework.
So it's a huge educational effort.
It is. We need to change mindsets, foster a culture of participation within cooperatives.
Okay, so challenges acknowledged, but let's zoom out for a second. What does the future hold for cooperatives in India?
Well, I think we're at a really exciting turning point. The 97th Amendment has laid the groundwork, but now it's time to build on it.
Time to see what we can create with these new tools.
Exactly. And everyone has a role to play. cooperative members, leaders, policymakers, even the general public.
So what are some of the key factors that will shape this future?
Well, technology is a big one. Digital platforms can help cooperatives in so many ways connect with members, access markets, streamline operations.
The internet truly is a game changer.
It is. And there's also this growing awareness of sustainability and social responsibility.
Oh yeah, cooperatives are perfect for that. Promoting ethical practices, contributing to their communities.
Exactly. They can be a real force for good.
And people are starting to notice.
They are. And that's attracting new talent, new investment to the sector.
So there's a sense of optimism, but also a lot of hard work ahead.
For sure. The 97th Amendment gave us the tools now we need to use them wisely.
To build a cooperative sector that's truly democratic, efficient, and impactful.
Exactly. One that benefits everyone.
And that brings us back to our listeners. This deep dive, it's not just for UPSC aspirants.
Not at all. Cooperatives are relevant to everyone who wants to understand India better.
They touch upon so many aspects of Indian life, from agriculture and finance to rural development and social justice.
Understanding cooperatives is understanding India.
And for those prepping for the UPSC exams, this deep dive has given you the foundation.
But remember, the real learning happens when you go beyond the textbooks.
Think critically. Ask questions. How can cooperatives address climate change, rural poverty, gender inequality?
Those are the big questions, and we hope this deep dive has given you the tools to explore them.
Because the success of cooperatives is not just about laws and regulations, it's about people.
People coming together to build a better future.
Working collaboratively towards a shared vision of a more just and equitable society.
A vision worth fighting for.
Absolutely. So there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into cooperative societies in India.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the historical context to the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
We hope you found it insightful and engaging.
And that it sparked your curiosity to learn more.
Because cooperatives, they truly have the potential to transform India.
Who knows? Maybe you'll be the one to lead the next wave of cooperative innovation.
Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep believing in the power of collective action.